Bad-mouthing a dead man for personal gain is pretty much as low as it gets. Ray Comfort is best known for claiming that bananas speak to the glory of God's creation, and his partner, Kirk for claiming that scientists have been desperately trying to discover the crocoduck in order to prove evolution. Yeah, I know, it's on a par with claiming if Hitler were real, then we would have found his Death Star by now. Now, defiantly strutting one's own ignorance around in public, in the belief that this will somehow disprove science, is one thing. However, in their latest publicity stunt, it's gotten, well, frankly cheap. Okay, I'll let Kirk explain it.
On November 21st, 2009, the world will celebrate the 150th year since the publication of Charles Darwin's book, Origin of Species. Now, when my friend Ray Comfort heard about this, and that the book was public domain, he actually wrote a 50-page introduction for the book, which gives the history of evolution, a timeline of Darwin's life, Adolf Hitler's undeniable connection with the theory.
Enough. Now let me just start by saying, even if everything that Kirk just said was 100% absolutely true, it would have no impact whatsoever on the veracity of evolution. For instance, Newton might have been a drug-using deviant, sexually inclined with sleeping with the dead, but it would have in no way impacted whatsoever even the slightest veracity of Newton's observations of motion. And Hitler was, of course, an absolute Newtonianist, devoted to a philosophy built around a Newtonian world, but this does not affect the worth of Newton's theories. And even if Kirk's general concept were true, the game is facile to play. I mean, why should we read the introduction written by a man who has undeniable similarities to Hitler? A man who claims to be a Christian in public and then makes statements like this.
There's no God.
Ray the author.
And of course you've written 70 books.
It's the same book with a different cover, nobody's noticed.
Not true, Ray.
Yeah, okay.
Not
like,
true.
It was like a joke.
I thought lying was on the commandments.
It was like a joke.
It was like a joke.
Yeah.
Many a true word spoken in jest. Well, let's take a look at this tract from Why Christianity by Ray Comfort. Imagine I offered you the choice of 4 gifts: the original Mona Lisa, the keys to a new Lamborghini, $1 million in cash, or a parachute. Or this from your blog. I have 4 gifts for you: the original Mona Lisa, $10 million, the keys to a brand new Lamborghini, and a parachute. Or this sketch.
Imagine that this plane is going down right now and you have to jump. Your heart is thumping in your chest. Why? Because you know that at any moment you're going to have to jump and the law of gravity is going to kill you when you hit the ground. Someone offers you the Mona Lisa. You push it aside. Then someone tries to give you the keys to a brand new Lamborghini. You drop them on the floor. Someone else tries to give you $10 million. You push it aside. And you stand there in horror at your impending fate. Suddenly, you hear a voice say, "Here's a parachute!"
Or the introduction that you wrote for Origin of the Species. Imagine I offered you the choice of 4 gifts: the original Mona Lisa, the keys to a brand new Lamborghini, $1 million in cash, or a parachute, yada, yada, yada. And in every single one of these, where Ray compares gravity and falling out of a plane to what he perceives as God's will, he misses the obvious point that gravity is demonstrable. Falling out of planes is demonstrable. Terminal change of momentum is demonstrable. And parachutes have a real track record of reducing fatalities. Whereas Ray has nothing to support his fantasy that when you die you will face something for which there is no evidence, who wanted you to do something for which there is no evidence, and that the only escape clause, which of course there is no evidence, was to believe in something for which there is no evidence, else you will be sent to a place for which there is no evidence. If only there were a word to describe the credibility of your analogy. But in short, Ray indulges himself in sadistic fantasies about you being tortured in the most unspeakable and anthropomorphic forms ever, and then rationalizes that he is a good man for trying to save you from his sadistic fantasies. Anyway, back to the point.
And of course you've written 70 books.
It's the same book with a different cover, nobody's noticed.
A man who claims to follow the wisdom of Jesus, the Jesus who threw the moneylenders out of the temple, saying, "Make not my Father's house an house of merchandise." and then introduces his own ministry, his house of God, if you like this.
This is what's known as a CSR room, customer service representatives, where they take orders from people from around the country or around the world. So they're kept fairly busy.
And so this is where everything is sold?
Yes, and it's via the internet often, and an 800 number that people call.
The ministry makes money by selling books, DVDs and 20 million gospel tracts a year.
Well, let's look at his bank buddy, Kirk. This is what he said at the beginning of their video attacking Darwin.
Are you concerned about what's happening to our country? One by one, we're being stripped of our God-given liberties. Our kids can no longer pray in public. They can no longer freely open a Bible in school. The 10 Commandments are no longer allowed to be displayed in public places.
And this at the end.
Remember, this is America. It's still the land of the free, the home of the brave.
And this at the beginning.
And all we want to do is to present the opposing and correct view, rather than being censored, which is exactly the case at present.
And this at the end.
Listen, for instance, to UC Berkeley's policy right here in California. Their own website says, anyone is free to distribute non-commercial materials in any outdoor area of the campus.
The words manipulative toad spring to mind. But now let's watch Kirk shamelessly try to exploit the scientific credibility of the dead for his own personal gain.
It then presents a balanced view of creationism, with information from scientists who actually believe that God created the universe, such as Albert Einstein.
Bullshit. Einstein not only rejected the idea of your God, but also of Christianity, organized religion, and the idea of a personal God. Einstein was at best a deist, but to claim that he believed that God created the universe is simply bullshit.
Isaac Newton.
Newton died 150 years before Darwin proposed the theory of evolution. Newton may have been a Christian, but he was also a firm believer in alchemy.
Copernicus.
Died 400 years before the publication of The Origin of the Species. I mean, really, this guy only just beat the printing press into existence.
Bacon.
Evolution by natural selection was proposed 200 years after he died.
Faraday.
Ooh, Faraday. Great. Origin of Species was published 8 years after he died.
Louis Pasteur.
Pasteur, finally, a creationist who might have lived long enough to express an opinion on the subject. Apparently a creationist who accepted evolution, albeit he was sceptical about natural selection.
And Johann Kepler.
Ah, great. Back to 250 years before the proposal of evolution to finish with. Incidentally, in Ray's introduction, in contradiction to what Kirk says here, does not present any arguments by these scientists to support creationism. So let's summarize, shall we, Kirk? Of your great list of scientists who you state believed in a creator of some sort, 90% predate the existence of photography, and 100% of them are remembered for their scientific achievements, for their description of the naturalistic world, none for their views on religion. In any event, this appeal to historical authority is utterly redundant. Science is effectively about building models of utility, about reality. These are built on the preponderance of data that simply wasn't accessible to folk who lived before the knowledge of the structure of DNA, or even that we live in one galaxy of billions. Look, it really doesn't matter. Darwin might have been a sadistic Satanist who got his smileys out of sodomizing storks, but in no way would this affect the integrity of evolution any more than the alliteration. A scientific theory stands on its ability to describe and predict reality. In this sense, evolution is a hands-down winner. And it is exactly this aspect that our Christian friends here ignore in their distasteful hope that through personally bad-mouthing someone who has been dead for over 100 years, and obviously cannot defend themselves, that they will somehow degrade the worth of a theory that man initially proposed. The even sadder thing is I went over evolution when I met Ray Comfort to the point where even he could understand it.
Well, I don't believe evolution is a viable science. I think it's a theory of man. It's the theories are what it is. Theories